Hey monsters, we're back. You may have noticed we've been MIA for quite a while, but we are ready to get back to work, bringing you the latest breaking true crime news for updates on the cases you care about the most, and probably some you've never heard of.
And to show you how much we've missed you, we're back with not only the podcast, but also video, so you can put faces to names for our weekly special guests. And we now have two ways for you to join us. Either tuning in on your favorite podcast platform, or you can join us for our video interviews on YouTube.
You may have noticed we also made a change in our name and are now Murdered and Missing News, which just feels a little bit more in alignment with the work that we do with missing persons. We wanted to include that. And in case you're finding us for the first time today, allow us to introduce ourselves. I'm Aurora, and I'm here with my favorite true crime fighting pixie, Angelina.
And we have a special guest today, Brittany Rohr, founder of the Kind I Am movement, which aims to use acts of kindness to put a spotlight on human trafficking, mental health, and poverty. Brittany, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi.
Hi.
It's nice being here.
Yes, we're so excited to have you. And I was lucky enough to meet Brittany at a networking event. And it's so great when you find somebody at these events who's kind of like in alignment with you, doing things a little differently. And Brittany, you kind of just blew my mind with how personable and open you were. So grateful for that.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. It's my first time doing this, so I'm nervous but excited, and thank you for having me.
Well, you are such a pro, you definitely don't need to be nervous. Well, a large part of the inspiration behind Kind I Am was the fact that you are a survivor of trafficking yourself. So we want to start by talking about what life was like for you leading up to the time that you met your trafficker. If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my life was probably very common, as everybody else goes through life, thinking that their life is so crazy different. It's really not. When you're in high school, everybody goes through the same things. They just think that it's different. So I really had a hard upbringing where money was scarce, and I wanted to make sure that my family was good. So I worked full time. I was the youngest team leader at Chick-fil-A at the time. I was excited and all of that fun stuff. I had full scholarships. I, got straight A's. I was in honors programs, like trying to, do the best I can. I did have a bad relationship in high school that led to me still not really knowing what a real relationship looked like. But then, I got into college. Went to State College of Florida, and that was my I didn't have anything crazy. I was just struggling, financially, but who isn't anymore?
Right.
Sometimes after college.
Right. And forever. How did you meet your trafficker, and what were those first interactions like in the beginning?
Yeah, so I met him in college, and he was actually my very first class in college. It was English. And that was the one thing I struggled with, was English, because I have dyslexia. And so when you read out loud and all that, I just had like the most traumatic, and I didn't know I had dyslexia at the time.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, I just thought I was not smart. And so I worked really hard to get those, honors and all of that stuff. So yeah, he offered to tutor me, and I thought he was cute. And so, we started, tutoring and becoming friends. We went on a couple dates, but he kept things very at arm's length. He didn't really let me get too close. But he learned a lot about me and my life. So that's how I met him.
And he didn't reveal much about himself, I guess.
I mean, he said that he was in the military, and he said that he just got out of a long relationship. And that was really all I really knew at the time. So.
Right. And you have said that at first being trafficked didn't feel like anything. You were developing a relationship with a friend. Can you talk more about that relationship?
Yeah. So basically the relationship was just like any other relationship starts. You know, you go on little dates. You know, they kind of give you cute little things, and you know, it's just things are cute. It honestly felt just like anything else, but again, I didn't have anything really good to compare it to. So because I didn't have anything good to compare it to, it made it very difficult to know if it was wrong. The one thing that I kept going back to is I kept reassuring myself in my brain about it. I kept thinking, you know, he makes me feel safe though. But he's so sweet. He's so kind to me. You know, he cares about me. Like I kept reassuring myself. So I have a funny feeling that my gut knew.
Right.
So
You
I
sort
think
of like saw some red flags, but like didn't really realize you were seeing that.
I knew it. I think I rationalized it.
Yeah.
I think that's so common when we're in a situation that isn't quite obvious, like dangerous yet, that are, you know, like our like parents, especially as women, will tell us like, oh, like just be nice, like you're being rude, like everything's fine, and try to tell us our anxieties aren't relevant. And so it's like, no, no, this is how it's supposed to be, right? And like
Right.
you just can't register it.
The other thing is you never think something bad's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
You're like, no,
You're like, these things happen on TV or like to random strangers.
or somebody
Like,
in another country or another
yeah.
state, not me. So you're
Right.
not really even thinking it could be you.
So looking back now, would you say that your trafficker gaslit you to discourage you from questioning what was going on or whether anything was weird in your relationship?
There was a lot of mental manipulation.
Mm.
Looking back, it's a lot easier to see, of course.
Yeah.
In the moment, it was more like when I would come home with any kind of money, because again, it was very like it was slow. It wasn't you know, oh, you're gonna go in the strip club and now right you're gonna give me your money. It was not like that. So it was more like, oh, you're not good at budgeting, right? You can't manage your money. You don't know how to manage your
Wow.
money.
Wow.
You know, so you just give it to me and I'll take care of it.
Wow.
And so that was it's transition. It's slow. It's like a frog being boiled. So, you know, if you boil the frog too fast, the frog jumps out, you know. It was like the perfect, you know, just like the time. It wasn't
Slow
wasn't
roll.
fast.
Right.
So, yeah, it's just basically making you second guess everything that you do, and that you can't depend on yourself for the information, the knowledge. You have to go to him to get that answer because he's smarter than you. So
So, what was daily like life for you when you were under the control of your trafficker?
So he did put me in the strip clubs, and I would basically go to school. I was still in college, so I would go to college, and then this was a long stint. I would go to school from like Tuesday and through Thursday, or it was Monday through Thursday. That's right. And then so Thursday after school around noon, I would get in my car and I would drive down to Miami, and work down there until Sunday evening. And I would work from about 7 at night until about 3, 4, 5, 6 in the morning until I made my goal. And so it was really hard on your body. It's mentally exhausting because I didn't want to be there. One of the things I never did was I never drank. I never did any drugs. So like I never had that like a lot of the girls, they would do the drugs in order to, I think, mentally disassociate. But I never did that. And so it was very difficult mentally. And then your body is just exhausted because you're literally in heels on your feet, you know, all night.
So I'm wondering, did he just sort of propose this to you, like that you should get a job in a strip club and just like that would be a good way to make extra money, or like how is it to convince you, I guess?
Right. So I was working 2 jobs. And before all that happened, in school, I had 2 jobs. I was a manager at Sonic with the fast food, you know, I had skates and all that fun stuff. Yeah, I was known as Crash.
Wow.
I suck at skating. So management was a little better for me probably. But then I got offered another job at the shoe store across the street at the mall. And so because they didn't replace me right away, I just managed both places and went to school full time at college.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, I can do this. It's fine. They'll replace me at some point. Well, I think it was the stress, but I ended up getting an ovarian cyst. It was like the size of a grapefruit, very large grapefruit, and it burst. So I bled internally for like 2 weeks, and I couldn't even walk for a while. Like I was in so much pain. And so both places replaced me. So at that time, my mom was going through some health problems, and I didn't want to ask her for money. And it's hard to ask your parents for money, especially when you know they don't have any, you know. And I couldn't find a job. I was trying, and I got turned down. At that time, I guess the job market was reversed, and so it was hard to find a job. And so he convinced me, and it was not. I guess it's just so hard because it's like when you look back, you're like, duh,
Yeah.
But, when you're in that stressful situation and you don't know what to do, you trust. And I didn't think I was pretty enough or had the body for it or whatever. I had this visual in my head that you had to be like a top-notch model, to do that. And so I didn't think it was going to work anyway, to be honest. And then, when the money started coming in, he just kept, doing nice things for me. And then there's like this, it's kind of hard. Again, it's so hard to like explain it. But what he would do is he would put me into debt. Like he would open up credit cards in my name. Oh, you need to build your credit, right? So he would open up a credit card in my name, and then he would go shopping, right? Or buy this or that or whatever we needed, and now I have to make enough to pay that.
Wow.
So it was constant. It was a constant back and forth of that.
It's really like another way of retaining control over you too, because now you have like this debt that he's managing. And it's like, even if you weren't happy and wanted to leave, it's like, you feel like you can't, like financially.
Correct.
You got to settle the score first.
Right. Well, also, not just that, but then you have the mental health part really bothers, people. It really it hurts the inside. I have a condition. I didn't know I had this condition. This is something I learned later. But I have a condition called dysautonomia. So it's a dysfunction of the autonomic system. So random things would go wrong for me. Like I would have hiccups randomly. My pupils weren't always the same size. My blood pressure was low. I didn't know that at the time. My heart rate was low. Like I had all these random things that were going wrong. My stomach had all kinds of issues, just all kinds of little things. And his stress created more of that.
Yeah.
And so when you're under that level of duress, you do whatever you think you're supposed to do because you don't have the ability to really, think for yourself.
Right.
So, nobody else would love you because you have all these health problems. Who else is going to take care of you? But yet somehow he was never working and I was always the one actually working. So it's so, you look back and you're like, how did I not see it?
Yeah.
But it's that frog being boiled situation.
Right.
Yeah.
It's called grooming.
Right. Were there other victims that you know of who were in the same situation as you at the time, like with your trafficker?
So he did try to bring other women in. He just wasn't very successful with it. I think part of it was that he was trying to maintain the illusion that we were boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, right? So I was the girl, and that we were bringing these other girls in. He kept bringing up polyamory, that kind of thought, and that really didn't sit well with me. And so he had to try to convince me of that. Otherwise, I was going to go, right? So he had to maintain. I don't think he was like at this type of trafficking is different than what people normally think of. So you have to maintain a mental tie in this type of trafficking. So it's not the same. So he wasn't very successful in other girls, but in the world where I was, I saw lots of other girls. And there's always constant pimps trying to, steal the other girls from other people. It was a mess, which is why
Did you realize that at the time or mostly in retrospect?
No, at the time they were trying to recruit.
Oh, wow.
And so I thought, well, no, I have a boyfriend. I'm good. I don't need you, but I could see others and yeah, again, it's one of those things where it's different when it's you.
Yeah.
Right.
So
When did you first realize that you were being trafficked?
so trafficked, that was okay. So hang on. So learning that I was actually trafficked was not until I got home.
Okay.
So I didn't realize the situation I was in. I thought it was just domestic violence. So when I got back home, I was actually at a seminar for Sale of Freedom, and they were showing a video, a movie about the truth behind trafficking and like what it really is. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. It's not being snatched. It's being, and then all of a sudden they started showing this girl going through the process. And all of a sudden my whole body had a reaction. I started physically shaking, crying. And I was like, what is happening to me? And I'm in this room of professionals. These are businesses. The goal was to show businesses what to look for. And here I am, like, I'm a mess. And I left everything sitting there. I just walked out. I couldn't stay. And it was me. That was me in the video. And then all of a sudden, all these little pieces started fitting together. And I was like, how did I not see that? Oh my gosh, what actually happened to me? And then, now you really start to do the dive. So I didn't even realize it until after I got back.
Wow.
So several years later.
So how long after you noticed that something was not right with your relationship, were you able to escape that situation?
So the reason I realized I was in a situation that I was trapped, and that's why I was like, how do I answer this? Because this is really what happened. So my dysautonomia got to the point where it was so bad that the doctors gave me a prognosis of 3 years to live.
Wow.
And this was, I believe it was 2017.
Wow.
I think.
Oh my gosh.
I think that's right. So crazy enough, I'm still here.
Yeah.
So we went to 4 different medical universities trying to figure out what was wrong with me, and they figured out it was dysautonomia, and they couldn't figure out why my body was shutting down. So like my kidneys, my liver, my heart, everything was having issues. I was fainting, like physically fainting, and I would go into full body paralysis.
Oh my God.
And it was 3 to 5 times a week. So if you can imagine, all of a sudden you shut down, you like literally fall to the ground or fall on your desk or whatever. And then you can see through the slits of your eyes. So you can see kind of some shadows and movements. You can hear, but you can't move and you can't speak. You're literally paralyzed.
God, that is so terrifying.
Terrifying, yeah.
It really was. And then sometimes I would forget to breathe. So like my lips would start turning blue. And so he would be like, oh, you got to breathe. You got to breathe. He'd be standing over me and I'd be sitting there going, breathe in, breathe out. Like in my head, I would sit there and repeat to myself to breathe until I would come out of it. And at some point, my Rottweiler, this is the coolest thing. My Rottweiler, he was such a sweetheart. His name was Razor.
Oh.
And Razor would literally lay on my left side when I would fall. And he would start licking my face and my hands. And I didn't know what he was doing. I thought he was taking advantage of me since I was like incapacitated. But
he's so smart.
Yeah, he was so smart. He was actually getting the blood flow.
Wow.
So he became my service dog.
Oh my gosh, I'll bet. That's so, like, he already
that's
pre-trained
so nice.
himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he literally pre-trained himself. And so it was amazing. And so, yeah. But yeah, so I was dying. So when they gave me the 3 years, I got depressed, right? So I went through like a month of depression. And then I realized, wait a minute, I have 3 years. I flipped it. I have 3 years. I have 3 years to make a difference in this world before I go. And that made it harder for him to control me. And so I started getting more vigor, excitement.
Right.
And so he told me I was going crazy. He told me I needed to see a psychiatrist and get put on antipsychotic meds.
Oh no.
Yeah, so he walked me into the psychiatrist, of course, with me, told them I needed medicine. And then the doctor was like, no, with her health history, I'm not doing that because I'm not going to be the one to kill her. So he sent me to a psychologist. That was the big difference right there. The psychologist, so we were both walking in the room, and the psychologist looked at him, and she was like, one patient at a time.
Smart.
Oh,
Love that. She's like,
yes.
something's not right.
Right. She knew. And she tried to convince me of what was going on. I was like, no, you don't understand. I'm a terrible person. He beats me because I deserve it. Like, I literally, in my mind, he had me believing that I deserved it.
Yeah.
So I was defending him in that room with her. And then
Which is probably another red flag for her. She's like, yeah,
she
that's
knew
what they
it.
would do. Yeah.
Yeah. She got so frustrated with me. She was like, okay. She's like, clearly I'm not going to convince you here right now. She goes, go home. She goes, do this thing. When you do this, he's going to have this reaction, and then you will know. And I'll see you next week. And I was like, all right. Yeah, okay. I was going to go prove her wrong. I got home, and I'm not sure exactly it was like that day or the night or next day or whatever, but she told me to basically say that I needed a break. Like that I should, because he does so much for me, I should pull myself out, give him a break, and let's just try taking a break. Let's just see how it goes. And that he was going to have anger, and he was going to have a very intense reaction.
Yeah.
And he did. And all of a sudden, this is how I describe it because it makes so much sense. The whole room was curtains. And when he did that, when his reaction just flipped like that, just like she said, all the curtains dropped at the exact same time, and I could see the cage.
Wow.
Right.
And at that moment, I started paying attention to everything he was doing. Like, everything. What he said to me, his body language, how he looked at me. Like, all the pieces. And it was so clear. It was like I put glasses on for the first time. And so that's when I realized I was trapped. And I was like, well, I have 3 years, like I don't want to be living in a trapped situation. So that was basically the start of me trying to figure it out.
Can I ask, after you did get out, what happened to the symptoms of your, I'm probably saying this wrong, but dysautonomia?
Yeah.
Did it improve? I don't know if it's been 3 years, you're still alive, thank goodness.
Right.
But like, what happened with some of those symptoms?
So my body was literally dying. And now I just got my blood work back actually like last week. So this is really, I haven't actually told anybody this yet. So this is exciting. My blood work has never looked better.
Ooh.
And I have literally fainted probably six or 7 times in the last 6 years.
Wow.
Of freedom.
Okay.
That's amazing.
Well, that's great.
Big difference. So that's what mental stress can do.
Exacerbate anything. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they say that women who've been in trafficking or victims of trafficking, they literally only can last around, on average, 7 years.
Wow.
So, like, I mean, and that statistic is probably old now, but I mean, it's something very, it's short.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's the mental abuse. But if you don't know you're being trafficked yet, I think that's a little longer. Like mine was 12 years. So that, it's different. So yeah. Yeah, I'm grateful.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
And how did you escape?
So that was crazy. So my mom is the only one who didn't give up on me. She would not let me go. And because she wouldn't let me go, we still talked on the phone. But it was always, of course, he was always around, or he would get mad at me for talking to her for too long or whatever. So it was very like limited communication. So what I ended up doing is I went to the bathroom and told her I was having bathroom problems. And I took my phone with me because I was playing video games, And so I would text my mom and I would send her pictures of like my black eye or tell her what he did to me. So there was proof, and like tell her. And then also we were planning the escape. So it was a lot to arrange because I was out in Vegas at the time and, she was in Florida. And so trying to get that, all arranged was crazy, especially on very limited short periods of time. So I would just text her when I was in the bathroom and then delete the texts. And so she like did a credit card, debit card in my name, but gave the card to a friend who was in the area. So there's only 2 people in the whole, like all my friends that knew what was going on. And so they helped plan. So they talked to my mom too. And so it was like this whole like, underground arrangement to get freedom.
Right.
Oh. So did they finally get you a plane ticket or come pick you up or something like that,
Oh,
or just coax you into being able to do that stuff yourself or?
no, I couldn't do any of that because obvious
Mm,
reasons with him being right there. So what
yeah.
ended up happening is my mom. So I had a mastermind out in Vegas, and so I just told him I couldn't go that day. I had a migraine, and so he had to go by himself, and he had to run the mastermind without me. And so when he left, my mom hadn't gotten there yet. A friend of mine was around the corner, and he came over, and was supposed to have 3 hours to pack. But long story short, his stepbrother was living with us, and his stepbrother warned him and told him what was happening. So it blew the whole plan. So I didn't get a lot of my stuff, my memory stuff, like my ornaments that I had, from when I was little, and like my baby books, and I didn't get any of that stuff. But obviously, doesn't matter in the end.
Yeah.
I got my animals because he used to use the animals as the, oh, well, I'll let the cats out with Vegas, they're gonna die. So like he was using the animals. He beat my Rottweiler. So I couldn't leave any of the animals that he cared that he knew I cared about. I couldn't leave them behind.
Yeah.
So I had to take my animals. I had to make sure they were out. I got some clothes, things like that, and then it was like a chase, a cat and mouse chase for a little bit. My mom flew in. My friend went and picked her up. We had to go to a different person's house because he knew where my friend was, and at that point, he knew who had helped me. And it was this whole it was a crazy, that's a whole other story in itself. It was insane. But we did finally make it out. Put a tow hitch on my Prius and towed a little U-Haul and my two Rottweilers, and I had another Rottweiler too at the time, and little kitty cats, and my mom and me in the Prius. And
Wow.
Tight fit, but I'm glad you all made
Yeah.
it.
yeah, and we ran over a deer on the way back as well.
Oh
So we
my
got stranded.
gosh. As if the adventure was not harrowing enough.
Oh, yes, exactly. And there was no gas we had barely had enough gas to get to Flagstaff, and we didn't even have water or food in the car.
Oh man.
We just were trying to get out. It was crazy.
Wow. So since then, since you have escaped, what has your life been like?
Honestly, the beginning was difficult because he still did stupid stuff to try to, lure me back or I don't know what his plans were, but he took my life insurance policy for $500,000. Yeah.
That's a major, major red flag that we've definitely seen before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
He changed the primary beneficiary to himself, and he changed the address to an Alabama address, which I didn't even know he was in Alabama.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And so I had to get the state insurance attorney or state insurance something or other. Crazy. I had to get somebody. It took like 10 months. I just wanted them to cancel the insurance policy. They wouldn't even do it.
Wow.
So,
Wow. On your life.
On my life, yeah.
Well,
Bounty on my head. That's nice.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was terrifying.
Terrifying.
Yeah. So I lived in fear. I didn't leave my house. I was so scared. And so I ended up when PIs would come to my house. He broke in. He did come down here and he broke in my house, stole my dog, my service dog. He actually brought my service dog back to Vegas, trying to get me to come back.
Oof.
Crazy things. And he did get prosecuted for that. So, but yeah, it was stressful. However, all things teach you something. So what I did in order to start a business so I could start making income, which I still had no self-esteem at the time. I was still building up all of that again. Because he always used to tell me that the only reason the business was successful out there, that's a whole other story, but the business was successful is because of him. And I was just the front face, right?
Yeah.
So I had no self-esteem. So I had to learn self-esteem. And so I created a white labeling agency. So I own startsellingmarketing.com. So other marketers would go out and solicit for business, but I was afraid to do social media. I was afraid to go market. So they would sell the services and I would do the fulfillment. And so that's how I grew my business. Even when I couldn't leave the house.
Such a good idea.
So I'm doing great now. We've got
that's great.
55 employees, I think, or something like that now.
Wow. So it's really
And
grown.
seriously, I honestly, I'm so grateful. I learned so much, and I just, I try to look at things as a, what can I learn from this? And it's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that. And so, after all of this, do you feel more suspicious of new friends that you make or people that you meet after what you went through?
So dating is hard, but friendships are not. Um, I'm much more introverted than people realize. And so I give everything I have when I'm with somebody, but I listen to my gut now. So I don't have that same level of fear because I do listen. And I have a new spidey sense too. So like when I'm around someone who's like a psychopath or a sociopath, I actually get like these little goosebumps and tinglies on my arms.
Ooh.
I wish
So
I
I
had
can,
that.
Yeah, right.
you can go through what I did, and then
I
Doesn't
couldn't
sound
be
worth
around any
it.
member of
Yeah.
my family, but
no. So I don't know. I have this. I listen to my body now, and my body tells me good or bad. So
It's amazing how much work it can be to learn to just tune into that and just like trust your gut and like realize what your gut is telling you. Like,
I feel like mine
literally,
only tells me that it's hungry, like
yes.
constantly, like nothing useful.
no,
Just
I bet you
food.
tells you a lot more.
Mm,
You just gotta
definitely.
listen.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, when you think of trafficking, like they have this idea that it would be something really dramatic. We've all seen movies like Taken, where someone's kidnapped and drugged, and while that can and does happen, is it your understanding, knowing what you know now, that being trafficked tends to look a lot more benign in the beginning?
So I think there's different types of trafficking.
Yeah.
And so I think that right now, it's the Sound of Freedom came out, which was amazing to at least shed light on it. However, I think that a lot more trafficking looks a lot more like what happened to me because it's on a smaller scale, right? It's easier to do. If he would have been able to get me on drugs, it would have been a completely different story. He probably would have had more girls. It would have been a lot different for me. But because I had the DARE program when I was going to school, it worked. And so I was terrified. I was more scared of the drugs than I was of him. And so
fear mongering accomplishes something positive for once.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think that looks a lot. I think that the majority of trafficking looks a lot more like that, or some kind of manipulations involved. So it's a mental tie versus you're in a cage or something that they imagine. You're locked
It's
in a
not so
room.
literal usually, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's easier to control. So think about it. If you were the trafficker, right? If you had somebody who knew they were being trafficked, right? You have to
It's more risky.
Right, it's too risky.
Yeah.
So if you think about it like that, it makes a lot more sense. So I think it's a lot more like this.
I mean, I thought about when you were talking about businesses learning what to look out for and stuff like that. As a hairstylist, I've been given some information about that as well, because a lot of people come to get their hair done with their boyfriend, who is basically dictating the whole thing and sitting there the whole time. And so that's what we're supposed to watch out for. But I could imagine hearing your story that even if, I had you in my chair and then tried to say something to you about it, you wouldn't even believe it. You'd be like, no, this is my boyfriend, you're wrong.
Right.
So that's very tricky.
It is, and that's why it has to be done at a different level. So that's part of Aware I Am. That's one of the new things that we're building out right now. And it's about spotting the red flags yourself. And so we also have another AI technology that we're building out. It's called Empowered I Am. So we have two different, one's awareness, and the other one is real-time biofeedback. So Aware I Am is all about educating people, so youth, parents and teachers on how to spot traffickers and how to spot red flags in each other. And then the other side of it is how to report it. Empowered I Am is these watches that we're building out. We're literally manufacturing watches that are going to be able, they already have the base technology can already, it can sense good stress and bad stress in real time.
Wow.
And then you compare that data with location and time. And now we have personalized algorithms that can literally give you information. So remember earlier when I said where I felt like I was like reassuring myself, right? Instead of me reassuring myself and being convinced. Oh, a kitty cat. I have a dog. Somewhere out here. But you can literally see it on your watch. Ooh, every time I go around this person, it's, ooh, bad stress. Ooh.
Wow.
Ooh,
Wow.
wait a minute.
So if you don't even notice your own signals, it literally gives you an alarm about it. That's
Exactly.
really
When you're
something.
inclined to ignore your own gut, it's like,
Yeah.
I will be your stepping gut.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's just more clarity and more awareness. And so that's the whole point, is to make it so it's a little bit more, it's more clear. And so there's a lot of other pieces that we're going to be able to use for that. Like even, kids in school, PTSD victims will be able to, survivors will be able to deal with that. And then here comes my dog. Hi, Bubby.
Aw.
Oh, you can't. Might be able to see him, but Rottweiler. And so, yeah, we're trying to find solutions, because that's how it does look, I think, more so than often. You think that you're, I know, buddy, I know.
Hi.
Yeah, he's loud, he's big. He's like 120 pounds.
Oh my
We love
goodness.
Yeah, there he is. Hi.
Aw.
My little baby here, my protector. And yeah, so basically, it's all about awareness. It's about really thinking about what's going on around you.
And do you have any advice on, if you have an inclination, somebody that you're encountering might be being trafficked? I know this is probably like such a big, broad thing. Maybe it's hard to answer on, but like how your therapist had approached you, like, is there anything that we might be able to say to somebody that we meet, whether it's in a salon chair or at a networking event or wherever, if we suspect there could be something amiss? Is there like any thing you could say to lay the groundwork to opening up somebody's eyes to the situation?
So yes, I'd say that asking them questions so they can figure it out themselves is always the best. Because if you tell somebody something, the first reaction is protect yourself, your ego, right?
Yeah.
Shame,
Get defensive.
and yeah, exactly. So if you can ask them questions like, hey, what would happen if you left him tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Would he be massively trying to get you back, or would he allow you your space so you can find yourself? And so things like that, where if they really do, maybe they just mention it one time, and then all of a sudden they can see it.
Just plants a seed.
Right.
They have to see it themselves.
Okay.
It's unfortunate, but also those red flags, if you start to talk about it, right? If the awareness starts getting out there, then prevention is easier. And then people who are in the situation are better. We also are working on a personality test. So whenever somebody is arrested, now, again, it wasn't my situation, but maybe somebody, got arrested and they're involved in trafficking, but they don't even know it.
Yeah.
Well, now we have a personality test that we're testing, and we can see potentially if they are being trafficked. My personality test, I'll tell you really quick, it's really cool. Have you seen the DISC scores? So DISC has there's 4 different pieces of personality, and it shows you your natural, who you are, versus your adapted and who you pretend you are in front of other people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very intriguing.
Right.
Very. So mine, when I first got back, and this is in October, and I got out in March. March 3rd was my freedom date.
Wow.
And you can
Happy
see that
anniversary.
Yes. Years. So
Wow.
literally, if you look at that, that's still quite a bit of time being free, but not completely, right? There were still issues. My adapted style was low dominance and high compliance. But my natural was high dominance, low compliance.
Right.
It was
Wow.
completely just. So like that's the kind of stuff that we're looking into, because if we
Yeah.
can create these automated systems, so not everybody has to be perfect, right? Because you're not, and so we need to help catch more people, and we need better systems. So
Yeah,
we're
you're right.
developing
That probably comes from somewhere, like in viewing those tests, if somebody naturally had high dominance and high or low compliance, like whatever, and now
that.
they're
Right?
acting the opposite. There's probably somebody
It's like
affecting
what
that. It's like
happened?
it's something to look
Yeah.
at, especially with kids. I would think that's so important
Exactly.
to see.
Yeah.
So very cool
Well,
tool.
and think about those watches. Think about if you had a child and you were arguing in the other room, right, with your spouse, and then all of a sudden you get this notification that your child is going bad stress.
Yeah.
Right.
You now have the awareness and intention of how you're going to continue, right, that conversation.
What a cool tool. This is like the
Very
future.
cool. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. I love
exactly.
it.
I love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're just trying to do our thing, trying to help.
Yeah. Since escaping the situation in your life at the moment, have you come across any other survivor stories that you think compare to your own that you can relate to?
So I have to be honest, my level of empathy is so drastic that it's really hard to allow myself to even listen to some of those other stories right now.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
I did go through a really amazing therapy, and I would love anybody who's ever been through anything traumatic, they really need to learn RRT. It's rapid resolution therapy. My therapist, her name is Donna Satiro.
Okay.
That woman saved my life. And so she helps a lot of other people, but it was a 3-hour conversation. Literally, that's all it felt like. And so she's been able to help me disassociate. However, I've been having some new memories since talking to her before, which has allowed me to do all of this because I was not okay before. But I've been recently having some new memories that have been flooding back in. I think it's from all of the research and things. And so it's hard. So no, not exactly, but also I think that my level of my version of what I went through is not the same as a lot of the other people who know what's happening to them.
Right.
So it's harder.
Well, I do want to talk more. You've mentioned a little bit about Kind I Am, which we also mentioned aims to shine a light on human trafficking, mental health, and poverty. Can you talk more about the process of getting your life back and dedicating it to helping others?
Yes, my favorite. This is literally my favorite. So Kind I Am is built to unite the world with acts of kindness paid forward as well. And I think that if we all were just a little more kind, right, a lot less stuff would be happening in the world. So what really does lead to human trafficking is the poverty, right? A financial issue can absolutely cause vulnerability. Mental health causes a vulnerability. Anything in life, education, lack of awareness, right? All of these things cause vulnerabilities, which leads them to be able to be trafficked. So in order to truly end human trafficking, we have to fix those vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And so that's where the idea for Kind I Am ended up going into. And so, yes, we are going to unite everyone around kindness. And then we're going to start shedding a light by creating these action groups. And so inside of the platform, there's all these communities that you can join in. If you really want to focus on, say, hunger, or you really want to focus on poverty, or you really want to focus on education, then there's an action group and community there where we're giving solutions. We're bringing in other nonprofits. And so everybody can work together. So we have actual action and not just talk.
Amazing.
Yes.
Such
yes.
an incredible idea. Yeah, it's such a great idea. And it's so true because, for anybody that, follows us on TikTok or Instagram, that we follow a lot of cases of missing persons that are believed to be trafficked. And they're often teenage girls who, we don't know what their home situation is. Like there could be poverty, there could be abuse at home. We don't know. But a lot of the time they end up talking to somebody on the internet that offers them a better life. And
Yeah.
it's probably somebody older, and they offer to meet up with them and take care of them and get them out of whatever situation they feel is not like good or serving them well. And then they fall into the hands of a trafficker that unfortunately is in a similar situation to yours, Brittany, where they don't realize they're being trafficked. They think that this is their boyfriend who's 20 years older than them or whatever, and they're a teenage girl. So you're so right. Those are like probably the two biggest thing, like a bad home life, which might be due to poverty or mental health, perhaps at the hands of the parents. And this is how it ends, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And so I think the key to that is the awareness for sure, but also with the digital safety and knowing when an opportunity is too good to be true. So a lot of times these traffickers will offer them a modeling job, right? Or
Right.
I have this music video. I would love for you to be in this music video, right?
Yes.
That we've heard a lot of. And
We had another guest who was also trafficked a while ago. I can't think of her name, but she has a wonderful podcast called The Unseen. And she had the same thing where she was offered a job in a music video, and she went to this hotel where they were keeping a bunch of other girls, and they like trapped her. Like it was not anything like insignificant, or she was not unaware of what was happening. They trapped her and tried to drug her and whatever. And it was for a music video as well. Yeah.
Yep. It's crazy. I actually had a situation here in Ybor when I was 18, and this is before I met him. And I mean, I think I was even still in high school. Maybe, yeah, I think I was still in high school. And so literally I was on the dance floor dancing with my girlfriends. And this guy walked up to me and he was like, "Oh, you're such a great dancer. I've got this really cool music video that we're filming down in the Keys. Would you like to be in it? You'd be so perfect for it." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, really?" I went to the Keys. I got on a plane and I went down to the Keys. And all of a sudden I'm in this hotel room with all these girls. And I was like, this is not feeling right. And something told me to just leave. And I know that's what that was. It had to have been. Even the girls were like trying to keep me to stay. I mean, it was just, yeah. So that was more obvious.
I'm so glad you listened. Right.
Yeah.
Who knows what would have happened? It's crazy. It's here in Ybor, It's like right around the corner in Tampa.
Yeah.
So
pretty unbelievable. But yeah, you got to stay on your guard, I guess. And you've got to be aware and informed, and it doesn't come very naturally. So thank you so much, Brittany, for all that you're doing to bring awareness and to connect people and to support people that might find themselves in these situations. It's a real important, real positive work.
I really appreciate you guys too. And thank you for caring.
Of course.
Of course. And can you let our listeners know where they can find Kind I Am and what they can do to help as well?
Yeah, kindiam.org. And basically just talk to people about it. Ask questions. If you have somebody who you think may be, a victim of it and they don't realize it, don't let them shut you out, because that's what the traffickers will do, is they will start to create little walls up for anybody who comes into the circle. Yeah. So just stay their friend. Stay their friend, ask more questions, document things if you can, bring things back up later. Just really, 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 really stay diligent on your friends.
Well, I guess that's enough murder for 1 week. If you need more, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you'll never miss an episode, and we'll keep you up to date with all the latest in true crime.
And also, please don't forget to follow us on Instagram at MMN True Crime, on Twitter at Murder News, on TikTok at MMN True Crime, and on Facebook, you can find our page just by searching for Murdered and Missing News.
And while you're there, you can also join our Facebook group, which will also pop up when you search for Murdered and Missing News.
And if you like what you've been hearing each week on the podcast, let us know by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or a comment, or a like, or a subscribe. And please be sure to subscribe to our show no matter what on your preferred podcast platform so you never miss an episode.
Have a great week. See you next time.
Bye, spooky friends.